studio.
Beware of the shipping delays this holiday season. At least 1/3 of FedEx Ground's delivery network is reportedly at risk of collapse.
There's weakness there because you watch how quickly Amazon is moving, and it's like just punch a hole in it.
It's a problem of technical debt, right, within the supply chain. Every entity has optimized for their own operations.
So to displace, is it possible to displace these guys? And if so, how? And how do you see the market?
We can then, restructure FedEx in a different way.
Okay, welcome to the Partnershipping Podcast again. This is episode 3, and this is the show where we talk about the B2C ecosystem. So all the different little players in our market in e-commerce logistics that keep the wheel of e-commerce turning. I've got a really special guest for me today that I'm very excited about. His name is David Luba, and he's going to be talking to us about a topic that's extremely relevant now in the last couple of years in the transportation world, and that is around our carbon footprint or eco footprint, and how we start managing that and how it's become a huge part of the sales cycle as well for transportation companies. So without further ado, David, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me for a discussion.
Craig, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so David is also a fellow Canadian, and he's got multiple businesses. So he's very unique in that aspect. David, tell us a little bit about your origin stories. I should say, just to get started, I think people love to hear about.
Absolutely. So we got into kind of this restorative space by starting an apparel company 11 years ago. When I was in college, a few of my friends, they had a carbon offset business, and their carbon offset business, they planted trees in 2006 or right through to 2009. And those trees generated carbon credits. Now, if you remember, there was a recession around 2008, and carbon credits were one of the first things people cut from their budget. The carbon market also wasn't where it is today back then. So my buddies came out to visit me when I was on a student exchange program in Hawaii, and everything we did was outdoors. We were really enjoying the wonderful world that we have. And we got thinking, why don't we give everyone the opportunity to help restore the planet? And we started selling apparel that planted trees. The idea was for every item sold, we would plant 10 trees, and we'd have a unique value proposition where people would be buying into the idea of a restorative business. And at that time, there were awesome companies out there that were sustainable, such as Patagonia and a lot of other great sustainable companies, but nobody was doing it in a restorative way. So that's kind of how we got started. And that business is tentree. By the end of this year, we will have planted almost up to 100 million trees, which is pretty incredible.
Wow, 100 million trees. I was thinking about your business and what you do, and I thought it's such an interesting legacy that you'll leave behind one day when you're indirectly involved with hundreds of millions of trees or billions of trees that your name is like sort of on in a way. And these are trees that might last, hundreds of years. And I thought that's like pretty cool, pretty cool business that David's a part of. And so, yeah, the tentree brand is quite well known in Canada. And I've been walking around in airports in the US and other places and seeing actually a lot of people wearing tentree clothing. And I always get a smile when I see it. So definitely very relevant brand, a lot like a Tom's footwear kind of, right? Where there's, per order purchase, you get some kind of socioeconomic benefit or benefit to the ecosystem or to nature.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And what I really love about the tentree model and just restoration as a whole is it's not just the planet we're helping, like you mentioned, socioeconomic impact, but we're actually lifting people out of poverty by giving people a hand up as opposed to a handout. So we're giving people their independence. We're giving them jobs. These trees are also providing food for people, and they're really giving individuals around the world their livelihood. Where I love Tom's, love a lot of these other groups, buy one, give one. But what's really impactful about restoring our planet is we can help the environment, but we can also give people some purpose, give them a job, and give them the opportunity to work their way out of poverty.
It's amazing because people go from just being a consumer and sort of obsessed with consumerism to, okay, I can consume, but it can also mean something. So yeah, definitely a brand that's been relevant for millennials and anyone younger than millennials, which I think is Gen Z. And so that took you on a bit of a mission, in my opinion, to become sort of like a world leading expert at tree planting and the verification of trees. I loved our discussion we had a number of months ago. We were talking about how it's actually not so easy to know when a person or a company says, "Hey, we've planted trees, we've done CO2 credits or whatever." It's hard to know if that is actually real or how effective it really is. So you've sort of got this like PhD that you gathered over the years of building tentree. And now tell us about this new company Veritree, which is relevant to the transportation space, and that's how we're talking again. Tell us about that journey and Veritree.
Yeah, absolutely. So after about our first 8.5 years of restoring the planet through tentree, we were getting a lot of questions from consumers, from wholesale partners, from employees, and some of those questions were, okay, when were the trees planted? Where are our trees? What is the impact those trees are having? And we traveled to our planting sites. We went to see the impact firsthand. And the impact's incredible. Like I mentioned before, we're lifting people out of poverty, we're improving biodiversity, but we still couldn't answer those questions with certainty. And what I mean by that is, for instance, we were at one of our sites, and I know we've planted over 10 million trees there. And I talked to our not-for-profit who was doing the work, and I said, where are our 10 million trees? I really want to see our specific impact right here in the field. And we were shown a field of 100 million trees, and we were told our 10 million trees are part of that 100 million. And I was like, this is really, really cool, but which ones are ours? And no one was able to tell us or know which trees were our trees. So it got us thinking, if we are hanging our hats on this promise that 10 trees are planted for every item purchased, and we are a tree planting company first and foremost, the apparel is just our way to plant those trees, we need to find a better way to validate and to measure and to verify the work is getting done. So we created Veritree. We use a technology to really co-create with our not-for-profits the areas we're going to be restoring. We do a baseline assessment. Why was this area cut down in the first place? What are the leading indicators in the region of degradation? How do we know that if we restore it, that's not going to happen? So we set up the goals. What do we want to do from a restoration standpoint? And what are those impacts we want to achieve from a biodiversity standpoint, a carbon standpoint, a socioeconomic standpoint as well? And as work is getting done in the field, we have thousands of cell phones at our planting projects around the world, and we're capturing data, where the work is getting done, who's doing the work, how far apart these trees are being planted, types of trees, incomes of people planting. And that data is captured and linked to longer term monitoring technologies, linked to satellite monitoring, acoustic monitoring, different forms of monitoring. And we review the data, and all of these forms that come in, we can then allocate specific impact at specific coordinates to different businesses, whether that's tentree, because this started for tentree, or whether that's another organization, because we've now used Veritree to empower over 100 other businesses to restore the planet. The data is tokenized using blockchain, so then we know exactly whose impact is whose from a GPS coordinate standpoint. And then we can measure things like survivability, soil health, water health in the area, biodiversity improvements. And then we'll consolidate that impact for our partners into one easy to use, easy to visualize dashboard that will then bring the impact from sometimes up to 20 different sites into one dashboard, where they can share that with their employees, their investors, their community, their consumers, to get people really excited about the measurable impact that's being made as a result of their actions.
Yeah, so it really is basically a technology company or a data company in a lot of ways, and it's grounding or rooting these promises that that have been made. Really amazing. So does this mean that there's the tree planters themselves are using like an application or something? How does that work?
Yeah, in most situations, they're using the Veritree Collect app, which is the app we've created. In other instances, if they already have a good monitoring technology in the field already, and if our not-for-profit already has that buttoned up, we'll have plugins so we can pull the data we need and still use the Veritree process to tokenize to know exactly whose impact is who, to give that transparency, because the real big problem was double or triple or quadruple counting. And there was no way to say, okay, this one tree here belongs strictly to Wismo and the impact Wismo is hoping to make before Veritree. How do you know that tree's not being sold 100 times? So it's a great way to really eliminate the risk of accidental double or triple counting.
So it's definitely an important, so for people to really understand why the tree planting is so important, I think the folks in our industry, or my industry in transportation, have to sort of understand what the other alternatives are, because I actually didn't realize the importance of tree planting until it was really explained to me, as compared to buying CO2 credits, or there are some like in shopping cart functions now that are apps for Shopify or whatever, but you can purchase an offset like as you buy something online, for the transportation of getting that package to you. Is that enough? And because from what I understood, having like not understanding the power of tree planting, I sort of was simplistic in my thinking, and I thought, yes, well, like somebody takes care of this, and they must verify it in the same way that it's verified by you. But I understand there's not really a governing body globally controlling this, and how relevant is the CO2 capture versus the tree plant, and why'd you go that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I think about it is, right now, on one end, you can go out and make a donation directly to a not-for-profit and don't get that layer of verification that Veritree provides. So that's one option you have. At the end of the day, all of these options are amazing. They all help the planet, and we need to do as many things as we can, because there's a major financing gap in what is needed for us to meet our climate targets essentially by 2030. So at the end of the day, you can make a donation there. Now, with what we offer with verified tree planting, we essentially are taking it another level to really measure impact. And then on the other end of things here, you've got carbon credits. Now, everything has its own purpose. And when I think about carbon credits, you can still get carbon credits through nature-based solutions, through tree planting, which is exactly what we're doing. And in the future, we're looking to generate high-integrity carbon credits as well using our technology. Now, what really differentiates how we're looking at things from strictly a nature-based carbon credit project is we're taking into account the holistic picture of the other benefits outside of carbon. And what I mean by that is, if we were just focused on creating a nature-based project where we're planting a number of trees to sequester carbon, we might end up with one type of tree in one area that's amazing for sequestering carbon, but it might not be restoring the biodiversity, which we need. We need to restore biodiversity and plant different types of trees for the animal species in the area. So what we're really looking at is biodiversity, soil health, water health, as well as carbon from the Veritree standpoint. And as we generate carbon credits in the future using our technology, we will also be looking to essentially measure those impacts as well, looking at it holistically, as well as the people component, the incomes of the people, how this is positively or negatively impacting the culture, to make sure it is positively, of course. So right now, you can go out, you can buy carbon credits. Carbon credits can be generated from a lot of different ways. I'm a big fan of nature-based solutions because I think there's a lot of other benefits from that as well. But when you look at going out there and purchasing carbon credits right now it's a bit of the wild, wild west. You don't get that full transparency on exactly which project you're investing in. In some cases you're able to, but it's not as streamlined as how we've made it with Veritree. And there's been some scrutiny over carbon credits lately. Like John Oliver did a skit on carbon credits, and at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of opportunity to standardize things and make things more transparent and more accessible. They're all great solutions, but we're kind of in the middle between making a donation to an NGO to plant a tree and then carbon credits on the one side where they're planted with a real focus on carbon exclusively.
Yeah, so this this became super interesting when we started talking about the specifics of what types of trees and where they're planted. When we looked at this solution with you, I believe we sort of had the opportunity to plant trees in Canada, and then we had the opportunity to plant trees in other parts of the world. And with currencies being different and whatnot, it causes, it's cheaper to plant trees in certain countries as opposed to Canada. I imagine Canada is one of the more expensive places in the world probably to plant trees. But yeah, it really felt like, okay, this is a person who be a great steward for my brand in terms of understanding the Wild West here, and tackling the Wild West as it rolled out, because it did seem too simplistic that you could just buy carbon credits and they weren't verified. And so this is such a super interesting, cool solution. And then you got into showing us some of screenshots of, I don't know how to describe the islands that you can build like in Veritree. I don't know if it's something you're able to pull up, but when a person is using your product, they have a portal for this data. Is that something you can describe or potentially show us in terms of like what that experience would be like when you're working with Veritree?
Yeah, absolutely. And also for carbon credits, like there are groups out there that verify them, but you might not get that transparency that we provide with regards to here's all of the GPS coordinates, here are the forms we've created essentially and collected that data from the ground. So we provide people with all of that data. So that's kind of more so what I meant with regards to transparency with carbon credits. Now that kind of leads me into from a Veritree standpoint, we really focus on the experience from like seed to sponsor. So we talk about that island. At tentree, for instance, when you buy a tentree product, it comes with a hang tag. You scan that QR code, you find out where your 10 trees are planted, who planted those trees, the benefits, and you get your own impact island. This is a virtual island. And as you buy more tentree product, maybe you have 10 mangrove trees. Those are saltwater trees, and your island will start having fish coming back to that area. Maybe your trees are high altitude trees in Peru, and those trees are preventing landslides. So as you support the brand more, you then get your island, which gets restored, more animals start coming there, and it kind of gamifies the process. So that's one out of many ways we're using restoration to increase customer loyalty, make it more tangible, more exciting to end consumers. We've seen a 21% higher lifetime value of a customer that has their own island that's growing their own forest on there, which is really cool. And we've been able to showcase with other industries how we can use restoration to help benefit their businesses. We've got hotels planting trees for guests who opt out of room service. And we've got a QR code on the door tag for opting out of room service or cleaning service. You can scan that code and find out your exact impact and where that's going to be. Now we're seeing opt-out rates up to 45% from 20, which is saving hotels money. It's saving hotels water and energy. And this is great for hotels that are understaffed, as well as it's really good for the planet. We're also seeing, even on the tentree website, people want to just contribute to a better planet and contribute to the impacts we're measuring and monitoring. So we have an area on tentree that's called Climate Plus, where you don't need to buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or a jacket to help the planet. You can offset your Netflix addiction or your weekend trip with your friends.
This is so cool. So you make it real and tangible, not only in a physical aspect, like having the coordinates of the tree and knowing where it is and planning it, but there's the digital aspect, like the gamification of it. And as well, I believe you had talked about how you use blockchain technology as well, that's verifying who's planting the tree, and like it takes into account things like the sun is in the sky or something wild. And I thought that is so next level. Like I gotta not only sign up with you guys, but I gotta start telling other people about it. So yeah, it felt exciting just to hear about it, and then like I'm excited to tell other people about it because it's such a unique solution, and you learn so much just by dipping your toe into having a conversation with you guys. So yeah, we are grateful for that. Yeah, so I think for a smaller firm like us, this is the great first step, which is just start with a solution like yours. It's very affordable. What are some of the ways you're able to roll this solution out in the e-commerce market to firms like myself? Have you had some luck with approaching logistics companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, like we've got a lot of great brands that are doing things like planting a tree for every order, showing what that impact is, giving the end consumers the opportunity to add an additional tree. Like on tentree checkout, you can add $5 and plant 10 trees. In the logistics space, we've done some really cool things to celebrate Canada Day, to celebrate July 4th, and restore a portion of both Canada and the US for a logistics company. And then we're also working with a few logistics companies that are looking to be carbon neutral and carbon negative. Now, we're not the ones measuring the scope 1, 2, and 3. We're the ones getting those measurements and doing the restoration work to essentially fulfill what needs to be restored, what needs to be sequestered, and measuring and showcasing that impact. And that kind of comes back to we're not that company that measures the energy consumption, but we're that company that can, when we get the measurements, effectively create the most efficient, effective impact using our technology and using our network of partners around the world. And we also do stuff other than tree planting. Like we'll do, like I mentioned earlier, seaforestation. So we're doing kelp. We'll do regenerative agriculture. And this is really impactful depending on the type of brand we're working with. We're working with Vega Protein, for instance, and they really want to focus on improving food yield around the world. So we're doing like an agroforestry project with them in Senegal, which is providing locals with mangoes and different healthy foods, which is cool. So what's great is when you see some of these brands, whether it's an omega company restoring coral reef or kelp, and really linking up their impact to make it true to their brand. That's really cool. And then one of the common denominators throughout all of this is carbon, right? They all help the planet by sequestering carbon.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time today. We're sort of at that 26 minute mark where I like to sort of wrap things up so the people have enough time to get through our discussions. But you've taken us through an awesome education that I think my industry needs more than any, because we're burning a lot of energy delivering all the goods that people have in their homes and businesses. And I was very surprised by how easy and also affordable you made it. I think our biggest issue still is probably making sure we're measuring correctly how to offset packages based on size and weights and destination and whatnot. I think we're probably just going to go with an average and go for like a simplistic multiple at some point. But certainly you play a very unique role in the ecosystem here. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And if people want to reach out to you about your programs, specifically maybe the logistics firms, what's the best way to do that?
I would reach out through our website, Veritree.com. And Veritree, again, stands for like verified impact, verified measurable impact using technology. So I would check out our website and reach out through there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it.
Awesome, Craig. Thanks a lot for having me.
Have a good one.
Thanks.